All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Dana Wilson. I am the CEO and founder of CHIP, which stands for Changing How Individuals Prosper. And CHIP is a financial services marketplace that makes it easier to find financial professionals and experts that you're actually about to see in 1 second. So I'm really excited for you all to join another one of our Cultural Coins conversations. We appreciate those who have been supporting and watching and really learning some valuable information from the experts who have been engaged in these amazing conversations. And today we're going to be talking about money strategies for major life transitions. I think this is a perfect time to start talking about this topic, especially as we head into the beginning of 2025, which is kind of crazy to say, but we are here already in the holiday season, into the New Year season, and kicking off any promises, goals, New Year's resolutions, things that you want to change, spruce up in all different ways, especially when it comes to your wealth in all ways. So I'm going to bring on our expert. I don't like to say panel, but those with deep expertise and amazing, just all the things, all the things. I think you all are wonderful at all the stuff that you do. So I'm going to let you all introduce yourselves. I'll just kind of go on a round robin and then we'll kick off the conversation. So Kathy, why don't you kick us off?
Okay, I think you might have said Kathy. Yeah, so my name is Kathy Williamson. I'm president and CEO of Williamson Financial Management Group. We are a full comprehensive investment firm. So we are out here working with people every day in retirement planning, education, estate planning, you name it. We do all of that. So I'm here ready to talk.
Awesome. Elena.
Hi, I am Elena Fingal. I am the owner of The Organized Money. I am a content creator, a financial therapist, and coach. And I basically help people organize their life, their money, and their business, and help them basically find strategies that will lead ultimately to their success.
Awesome. And I know you do that very well. Lachey.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lachey Calloway. I'm an attorney in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm the manager and principal of Calloway Law Group. We are a law firm that provides estate planning, real estate, probate, and private equity. So we do a lot of the things that you might need help with, all in a one-stop shop. So we're happy to get into this conversation with you guys to get into the new year and some things you should try out.
Awesome. And last but not least, Olivia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Smith. I am partner, attorney, and owner of SR Law Group in Georgia, right outside of Atlanta. Like Lachey, we do estate planning and probate. Our focus happens to be more seniors, and so most of our clients are 60 and over, helping them plan and understand what their needs are for that stage in life. And I am also happy to be here and join the conversation.
Awesome. And I'm really excited to hear, especially from that niche perspective of the clients you work with, Olivia. But we all have major life transitions, no matter how old you are, young you are, where you are, job wise, goal wise, money, and economic. I mean, there's been so much going on this year, to say the least. But I think being able to talk about what those transitions are really going to impact a lot of people. So yeah, let's kick this off. And really, I'll just kind of pick it off with this first question. What do you think is the most pivotal part of that major life transition that someone might be going through? And we can kind of just hop in and start there.
I'll say just from dealing with a lot of people who are really trying to get organized, that end of life, and I heard Lachey and Olivia mainly help people with like end of life planning, is one of the pivotal things that I believe that a lot of people think that they have time to do. And they almost want to wait until they're seniors. But a lot of times I am dealing with widows who are thrust into becoming a widow way too soon, and they had nothing organized, nothing was prepared. They were not ready for that process, and it caused a lot of fighting, a lot of back and forth, a lot of not having access to money that they probably should have. Some of them didn't have insurance, and it caused a huge financial strain on the family, and they had to go back to work. If some of them didn't work at all, they were in the home. And I know that caused a lot of financial stress in a time where you just want to grieve, right? And so when that happens, I feel like that can cause a lot of people to feel thrown off. And not know what to do. So I guess Olivia, I'll probably ask you,
Yes.
what do you think is like the first step that most people could possibly take? Because I'm always trying to give my clients ideas on how to get this process started and how to start getting organized, just in case, because you never know.
So I will say it's interesting because we work with older clients and they also still think they have plenty of time. So I think it doesn't really matter the age. Everyone thinks they have more time. And I think part of that has to really do with us not wanting to think about, talk about, or face our mortality and the fact that at some point we're going to die. And I will speak to the seniors, and I know Lachey probably will have some thoughts otherwise. So we work with seniors, and one thing that I think is challenging is them accepting where they are at this particular stage in life, what their needs are and what that means. And so there is just a lot of conversation around that. We really do a lot of talk too about long-term care planning. What happens if I'm incapacitated? What is the plan? And so many of our clients have not thought about that. They don't want to think about that. They certainly don't want to think about long-term care. So it's really introducing them to these ideas and understanding how not planning can bankrupt you, or not planning can really affect your financial health and your ability to be able to pass your legacy, pass assets on to your children and grandchildren and the people that you would want to inherit what you have. So from my perspective, dealing with the older generation, that really seems to be the challenge when we get started.
And so, like Olivia said, I deal with younger people oftentimes. I don't specialize so much in the elder care that she does and her partner, but I dabble in it enough to know a little bit to be dangerous, right? So with the demographic that I deal with, I think because of the way that I approach it with them, that's why it's not so much of an issue of them thinking that they have time. So what I always say to them, because people are like, well, how old do I need to be in order to start this, right? And I'm like, is there anything that you have that you don't want to go to the state, or you don't want the state to dictate how it gets to someone? The answer is most often yes. So I was like, as soon as that's something, and whether it's your child or property or anything, you are eligible to start planning. So planning isn't necessarily, let me get my affairs in order. It's what happens in the case of an emergency. And so what I often tell people is, prayerfully, we're only going to die once, right? But you can be incapacitated multiple times throughout your life, right? So what happens then? So for like my college students, you're now an adult. What do you do if you're in the hospital? Do you have a power? Do your parents have a power of attorney for you? Do you have an advanced healthcare directive? Have you told people what you want to happen? Because you can be in a car accident. There can be, unfortunately, shootings at a college campus. This happens in our society, right? So that's just, even at that age, this is the type of planning that we're talking about. In addition to your finances, like you have things that have to be paid for. Who's able to get into your bank account and make those payments for you if you're in the hospital? Who can make those medical decisions for you? Because you think it's your parents because you're still their kid, you're in college, you're living your best life, but it actually legally isn't, right? So that's how I'm able to kind of broach it with them. And then when, people are they have children or they're married, and it's just like, okay, so great, you're going to Dubai. Have at it. I hope you live your best life there. What do you have in place if something happens out there, though? What's going to happen with your kids? What's going to happen with everything that you have going on right here? So, like, don't get on a flight and don't have a power of attorney or something for somebody to help you on this side, right? So I kind of bring it down to them on a relatable level, not on what's going to happen when you pass away, but more so you're going to be incapacitated more likely than not, not speaking anything into the atmosphere, but you could be incapacitated for various reasons. COVID, we were not expecting. People were in the hospital for weeks. You couldn't even go and see them in the hospital, right? And so it's like, who's taking care of your affairs while you're out sick, right? And so that's how I broach the subject with them, because it is something that will be pivotal for them, but they don't think about it on that level, that this is what estate planning also encompasses, because they think more of like, oh, I need to wait until I'm 65 and go see Olivia, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm 23, I'm going to Dubai, and I need to make sure that these ducks are in a row just in case something happens and I'm not able to get back. My flights are canceled and I'm stuck out there for, a month. Okay, so what's happening over here though?
And it is insane that you use that example, because I actually had a client who, her and her husband went out of the country, and she got sick while she was out there, and she was hospitalized while out there. And because the healthcare was different, they didn't take her insurance. And when I tell you, they were price gouging them because they were in a foreign country. They didn't have access to their insurance, and they were asking for cash on the spot in the hospital. And they had to gather family and friends just because they didn't actually get the travel insurance that was associated with that. And so it caused a financial nightmare. It was a nightmare. And I think that that's kind of the thought. And I love the way that you put that, Lachey, is like just asking that simple question, like, do you have something that you don't want to go to the state? Because I feel like a lot of my clients as a financial therapist, they get overwhelmed. They get so overwhelmed emotionally with the thought of passing away, or they're super protective of their bank account. Like, I don't want anyone to have access to my bank account. But if you don't even put anything with the bank in writing saying that, okay, if I pass away, it can go to this person, then what happens then? Right. You are causing so much more turmoil with your family and friends and your kids and anyone else in your life. So I just love the way you put that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the other thing that I tell them when, because yes, it's just hard to think about, like, oh my gosh, you want me to tell you what I want to happen when I die? I'm, 30, right? Like, no one really wants to think about that in that moment. But what I say, at that age too, right? But what I tell them is, and to kind of go back to what you said, I always explain it as, let me tell you, I want you to understand, because I do probate. If something happens to you, this is going to be one of the worst moments of your loved ones' lives. Absolute worst, terrible. It's going to be even worse if you didn't tell them what you want them to do in this event. And so out of love for them, go ahead and tell them, especially with that advanced healthcare directive. Don't have them make the decision, leave that burden on them about whether you want life support or not. You know whether you want life support. Tell your loved ones so they don't have to feel like they are doing something that they don't know if you wanted or if you did want. Like, I personally do not want to be on life support for 15 years. I know good and well my family is not going to pull that plug. My bestie is my person.
Right.
She loves me. She knows me. She will do it. So once the time has elapsed where I was like, God can step in, let's do it. If I'm meant to be here, it will happen in this time period, right? But if it doesn't, I could say I only want to be on life support for 2 years. I promise you, 27 years later, and I wake up from a coma because my parents did not me, and I'm gonna be mad. So But my friend, my bestie, she knows me. She knows I don't even want to burden my family, finances, anything like that for 27 years or whatever. So just let me go. So that's, but I know that's something that my family could never do. They're not going to do. My brothers, nobody. But my bestie, she'll do it. That's what I'm doing out of love for them. So that's not even something that they feel like they're going to know that not only did I already put this in place, this is what I want. So, but two, I'm not leaving it to someone that I know will not do it because then they're going to feel that burden too. Right. And it's like, I know this is what she wanted, but I don't want to do it. So, like coming up and looking at your friends and family, and it's just like, all right, I know you, I love you, and this is what I'm going to do out of love. That's the kind of planning and structure that I give them, my people, to deal with this process. So it kind of takes it away from the morbidity side of it, where it's more so this is what you're doing out of love for your family and your loved ones. This is what you're doing out of love to take care of your kids, and make sure that they are in the right place and, things are accounted for and in place for them. So that's what I do. Even, at this time of year, because we're going into the new year, people want to know, like, well, what's the best way to even have that subject, that conversation with my family members, especially the older ones, right? Because they're not really trying to talk to you about that, right? So what I always say, just come at it from a different perspective. Like my college students, okay, I'm in college now. I have to do a power of attorney because I was told that you're not able to step in and like the doctor's not going to be able to talk to you if you don't have an advanced healthcare directive. So I'm going to put you, my mom and my dad down or whatever, right? Then you say, that's what I did. That's what I'm going to do going into 2025. That's my New Year's resolution. Mom, dad, do you have one? You do? Okay, great. Who has a copy of it? Because that's the other part, right? They can have it all day, but if no one can find it, that's not helpful, right? So like you're having conversations like that, and it's just a general conversation like, oh, I'm doing this power of attorney. I'm letting you know I'm putting you on as my person. Here's a copy of it. Do you have something like this? Who has a copy of it? Where do we find it? If it's not me, does the person that you listed know that you have this? And do they have a copy of it? You just make it very conversational. And then, you have a lot of people that'll say, oh yeah, I did it with Susie Orman or whatever. Okay, that's great. Did you run it by an attorney just to make sure everything was done right? Like just tell them, do a consult, $200, $250 with an attorney just to review what you put together for Susie Orman or, with Susie Orman, because I had a woman come in, I met her at a church. She came in, I reviewed it, and I was like, so did you want your son to be able to take you off of life support without any input from a doctor? she was like, no. And I was like, yeah, that's what this says right here. And you're in Georgia, but it says it's subject to the laws of California, which are very wildly different. So like, these are things that we as attorneys look at, right? And can, spot very quickly that lay people that are not attorneys don't know, they're not going to look for, they're not going to know what that really means for them. So even if they did have it with Susie Orman or whomever, have it reviewed by an attorney like, oh, that's great. I'm so proud of you for doing that. Have you run it by an attorney to make sure that it matches what's happening in this state, right? Because I know those can be like nationwide and very generic. That's how you make it a conversation and less, like, do you have your power of attorney?
Yeah.
Well, I would like to, this is really awesome. And I'll tell you why. As a financial advisor, these are conversations that we have on a regular. I pretty much won't let my clients leave without information, number one, beneficiaries and things like that, so that when these transitions occur, and like you say, they will, there's somebody to talk to. So, we always ask for a trusted contact. Who is that person? And as we go through a comprehensive list of things with them, estate planning is definitely a part of it, because we've had situations where people didn't do it. And like you said, the expense, the time, the emotions, it is so difficult to get through that. And, all of these things can take a year or so to resolve. So as I'm listening to you, I'm so excited that as attorneys, you all are excited about it, because that's, it's a thing. There isn't, every client I have, we get estate planning done. It's a forced thing sometimes, but I don't mind forcing people because I've seen what happens on the back end of it. So I
Yeah.
always tell them, with attorneys, it's better to pay them up front than to pay on the back end. And
Yep.
that's just the truth of the matter, because like I think, Elena, you talked about it, the emotions, you're grieving. That is a horrible time to make decisions. And so I do have to say to my clients sometimes, let's kind of back up here a little bit. If you're financially okay, we need to sit over here for a minute to determine what we need to do, how we're going to do it, what does the plan look like, so that, we structure it so that we're going through all of their investments. So we really start this process the moment you walk through my door. It's just known we're going to do it. And then we involve, how you'll get, like you say, you'll get a young person, Lachey. I loved how you said that, because then you have them say, well, mom and dad, where's your trust? Where is your will? And then with the parents, the one thing we do, we talk about, don't let your child go away from here without a POA. You will be hurt when you can't talk to anybody, And so we will talk about investing money sitting here. We've grown this money. We've done the things we need to do in terms of sending the child off to college and all of that, but we didn't do the POA. That's a problem. It is a real problem. And then the other piece of everything that you all are talking about, when you're looking at the trust and wills and everything, making sure they know where all of the accounts are. People will say, I think there's some money here. I think there's some money there, but nobody's really sure. Where is this money? Does it still exist? And then one of the things that we do as financial advisors, we go through the list of finances. We want statements from everywhere. It's like, just bring the mail, because I
Yeah.
know you don't open it, so just bring it. And so we can go through and identify it and find it, because what happens. Some things were done, but there were 2 accounts that they left out, right?
Yeah.
Now you got to go to probate. Now we got to start this whole process again. And then we've got to find people. So I am truly loving this conversation. It is near and dear
Yeah.
to my heart to see people invest and accumulate wealth, and then it doesn't go where they wanted it to go.
Yeah. And it is amazing as I can like see how everything kind of aligns. Because usually when I am talking to people, I am talking to people either before or after they have had some type of major emotional breakdown because they have missed one of these steps.
Mhm.
And now they have made a major financial decision, when they were in a highly emotional state,
Right.
and it does not align with their long-term goals.
Right.
So they were highly emotional, and studies show that 90% of the time, if we are highly emotional, we will make a bad financial
Yes.
decision. We will just try and do what we think we should do at that moment, but usually it's not the best thing to do. And then it causes a whole bunch of other things to kind of fall out of place. But the more that we take time to sit down with our family and friends and ask those questions, like Lachey was talking about earlier, when we're all calm, when we're all just, talking and having just a regular conversation, the more likely we are to make a good financial decision and kind of set things in place. And the other thing that you said, Kathy, that really like aligned with what I talk about, because it's called the organized money, is the organization side of it all.
Mhm.
Knowing where all of that paperwork is.
Yes. Yes.
Oh my goodness. I'm like, please, where are your insurance documents? Where is the investment documents? How
Yes.
many accounts do you have? Like I talk to my clients, what we call it, the money on one page. It's basically like having a document where someone has password protected, but someone knows that password, and it basically has access to like everything that they would need if you passed away. Like they have access, it's somewhere, and they know where it is, because so many times they'll pass and they're like, I know they have life insurance, I know they have something, but I don't know where it is. And I'm
That
like,
is,
yeah, go
I
ahead.
was gonna just say that is so true because, and I know Lachey can probably attest to this too. We will have clients come in and they will want to put a piece of property in a trust that they think they own. And when we then go and pull the deed, or we call Lachey and ask her to pull the deed, she'll say, they don't own this. They don't even own this piece of property that they want to put in a deed. So it is so true that oftentimes people don't even know what they own. They opened accounts that were 20 years ago. They haven't thought about those accounts. They have no idea where those accounts are. And so one of the things that I think is so important at the beginning of our process is the questionnaire. We need to know what are all of the things you own, what are your accounts, what are your policies, what pieces of property, so then we can then go and double check and make sure that you own it, and you own it in the way that you think you own it. Because sometimes people think they own the whole piece of property, but they may be on the deed with someone else. And so we say, well, you own it, but you own it with this person. You own it with your ex-husband. Or you got divorced, but you didn't do the work that you needed to do to separate this property. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I think is really important, and it's to something Lachey said, is who are your people? So many times people come in and they say, well, I'm going to have Bob be the power of attorney or the trustee because he's the oldest. And you're like, okay, Bob is the oldest. Okay, great. Is he the best person? And so a lot of the time it is really just talking through, okay, well, what are the qualities that you think are good that would make him a good power of attorney? Is he good with money? Does he listen to what you say? Is he good with his own money? Have you seen how, and there are people that have filed for bankruptcy that aren't good with their money, that are always asking the client for money, and they want to put them as power of attorney because they have in their heads, because they're the oldest, or because they are in this position, they are supposed to have that role. And so what Lachey said about her friend being her healthcare agent because she knows that she's going to honor her wishes, that is so important. And so we often tell clients there is no one that is supposed to be anything. It is whoever you trust, which is the most important, and then whoever has the skill set to serve in that position in a way that is going to be of a benefit to you. But I think those two points are so important.
And I'll tell you, again, listening, I just love this, and I will say that 1,000 times. I always tell my clients as well, you need a team. You need a team, because there will be things I know that they will not tell the attorney. And Elena, your position, I've been looking for you, because again, why we do what we do sometimes stems from our families and all of that. But I always have, my clients will have a team. They need an estate planning attorney. They need a CPA or an accountant, a good one who is relevant to whatever it is they are doing, not just one, but they need that. And, they need a financial advisor. It's just amazing in terms of the information, because I've gone to the estate planning attorney and sat with them sometimes because they told me all these things. I want to make sure that they give all that information to the estate planning attorney. In particular, like you were saying, Olivia, I had a situation where I went to dinner and met the potential people who were going to be in those positions. at the request of the client, because they said, I want to make sure I'm reading my children correctly. And I laughed because I said, you know your children, you do know them. So I'm sure you're correct. And we, went, and that was correct. So the assessment was right. And we made some changes based on that. But I think, having a team dynamic is so important, for our finances. And certainly estate planning is a huge part, because that's the transfer of the legacy. People work all their lives and they accumulate all this wealth. And I'm so happy to say we are accumulating wealth in a way. I've been in the business now 20, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And the wealth that we are accumulating is amazing. We have stepped up our game, and we are doing this. And so, before I couldn't find some estate planning attorneys, organized money, hadn't my first time seeing you. So this is great. I'm loving it. And if we will go out and pursue, and certainly people who are listening to us, get a team. You deserve a team of experts. They can keep you from making mistakes, because, we're not in it emotionally. We're in it to help you get to where you're supposed to be. And even when we look at investments, like I said, now we're looking at estates that are nice size, and whatever size that person's estate is important to them, and their family. So we don't discount the amount of money you have. But when you now you're getting into the millions and all of that stuff, you really need a team. But I think you need a team before you get to the millions, right? Because that's how you get there. And so I think it's really important for us to do that. As attorneys, you all see this information that the clients bring into you, and they're going to say some things to you, and you're going to say, that's not going to go well. And the other piece about it, and maybe Lachey, this is more in your wheelhouse. Now we are doing things that we've never done before. In some cases, we're owning these businesses. We're having all of these opportunities for options into these companies, and we're on these boards, and we're doing all these things. And how that's positioned on the estate planning side is very important. So, if this person gets all these shares of stock because they're on a board or something, there's a spouse sitting there. They don't want that to go. When they go, it needs to pass into that family, because that's part of the wealth accumulation for that family. So I think that makes it so important that, again, a team is involved.
That's so true. Like, I actually have a team here in Atlanta that I work with. I have an amazing tax attorney and a financial strategist, and then myself. And then, of course, I always ask the clients, tell me who your people are, because I want to work with them. These are your financial advisors, your CPA, accountant, tax attorneys that you've been working with. I want to talk to them. And then we do it together. So it's always a part of my plan. And if they don't have someone, because some people have just gone and they've just done really well on their own, I might go, I have someone, here are some people for you to talk to. I want you to see who you feel most comfortable with, because this is a working relationship. Like you said, it's a team. And, going back to the thing that you said where you had dinner with a friend. So I also do probate. And so the other side of this is I see what happens, and I have to work with when you have chosen the wrong people to do XYZ things. I see that as well. So when I'm talking to my estate planning people, I can give them real life experiences and examples where, there was a stepfather, and so it was a blended family, stepfather, and then the mother, and there were 5 kids. And when I met with them, like, our stepfather is so close to us. He's like, we call him dad because he's been in our lives for so long, and we're just that close. The mother did not get her estate plan done by me. She was a teacher. She got it done through prepaid legal. Again, you want to run that by an attorney because prepaid legal did not do that in accordance with Georgia laws. In a will, you do not your life insurance proceeds go outside of a will. They go outside of probate. It is whomever you left as the beneficiary. In her will, she said she wanted this money to go to all of her children to split equally. It didn't matter. She left as a beneficiary her youngest daughter who was getting married. And so everybody was like, well, in the will, it says we're supposed to split it. So surely she's going to split it with us, right? What do y'all think happened?
She didn't split it.
Well, they're not obligated to.
So
There is
she
no obligation.
had the wedding of her dreams.
Oh, I bet it was nice.
She did not split, like I said, not nan penny with her siblings or whatever, right? And I had to tell them legally she didn't have to. And so that's what happens. But, so I know what happens when people pass away and you think like, oh, they're going to do right by me. They know what my wishes are. No, you have to lay things out. And, we're going into the holidays, Christmas, you just finished Thanksgiving. This is a great time to see what your real family dynamic is. Who actually gets along? Are there sibling rivalries that 65 years later are still happening, right? And are they bitter about it? Are there people that can't even be in the same room with each other? You don't need to make them co-executors. Don't do it. Don't make them co-trustees, but people want to do it because they're like, well, I know they don't get along, so I don't want one to feel like I was favoring the other. That's not the answer here, right? Because you just made this worse and so much more expensive for your family and burdensome. So holiday, look at the family dynamics, look at the relationships, and really, kind of take a step back and look at everyone and see, all right, if I'm, it's not even that you passed away, you're in a coma. Whom do I trust with my kids? Whom do I trust to pay my bills, right? So when I wake up, my money is still here, right?
Yeah.
And you still have a credit score, right? Because sometimes, I know that's kind of terrible, but people come out of these things, you're like 3 months, if you're incapacitated for 3 months, your credit went down the tubes. And I know that's not the most important thing, but I will say it is something that is real.
Right. And it happened for a reason. Right. Yes. So it's not even the credit score is just the symptom of the problem that really happened. So if your credit score plummets, there's a huge problem.
Yeah. Because at the core of it, there are several emotions that highly come out during this time. One is fear. A lot of people have a lot of fear around money, but the second emotion is greed. A lot of people think that they know what their family and friends will do when I know my daughters, my sons, my children, they're going to split it evenly. Greed will, when money comes in, greed takes over. And then ultimately, the things that you like you were saying about the daughter, she had the wedding of her dreams. I'm sure she had an amazing honeymoon. She probably had the time of her life and was able to set up all of the things and not even thinking about her siblings. I want to know, did they go to the wedding? Because I wouldn't even want to go.
Easy. So that was only part of the story. So the dad, the stepdad, right? So after so you're right, there are emotions that get triggered. But another thing that happens when you get to probate, when the person that is the glue of the family passes away, that family dynamic changes. And in this particular instance, the mother was the glue. Do you know the children called me? And I mean, they're grown, right? One was an NFL player, grown, right? Called me and said the stepdad, they wanted to know what their options were because the stepdad changed the locks on the house and was no longer talking to them. And it was just like, what? Because I had met all of them.
Not the stepdad that grew up in the house that loved them.
Because they were like, we're just trying to get our family Bible, and he won't even open the door and change the locks.
Yes. That's kind of classic, isn't it? It's
and that's why I was like, it's weird because it's not greed, it's not, it's fear. It wasn't fear. It's just sometimes when that person that was holding everyone together is no longer there, people don't care anymore because they're like, I don't have to be nice because so-and-so is here.
Yes.
Now that she's gone, he's gone, it's over, and they're like, deuces. Like, and that's what the father did. But those children, God-fearing children, that man is only alive because of them, because they still invited him to Christmas and Thanksgiving dinners. And he didn't show up for, like, I think Christmas or Thanksgiving. And they went to the house and was just like, what's going on? Peeked through the window because, of course they weren't able to get in. He had collapsed, crashed into the table, was on the floor, and had been there since the day before, like whatever it was, Thanksgiving or Christmas. They called 911 and he was only alive because of those kids.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Yeah.
But this is so one of the things when we do presentations, we really focus on our blended families.
Yep, exactly.
Because I think sometimes we don't understand, in Georgia, stepchildren don't inherit. And so you have to be really intentional when you have a blended family about what the planning is going to be. Because like Lachey said, oftentimes the person that died is who everyone loved, and then they put up with everyone else. And when that person is no longer in the picture, they're like, whoo, I don't got to pretend like I like them anymore. And then all bets are off. And so it is so important when you have a blended family to make sure that you do planning. Otherwise, you do not understand what the results are going to be once you pass away if you haven't done your planning. And so I think that is just so important. I do, like Lachey, probate, and I do contested probate. And the most hotly, ugly contested cases are a surviving spouse and adult children who are not the surviving spouses. It is like World War III in those particular cases. And inevitably, on one side or the other, they're just like, I don't understand. Like, we all got along. Like, I don't understand what happened. But like Lachey said, those dynamics change once that one particular person passes away and all bets are off. The other thing I just wanted to point out, and someone had touched on this just a little bit, is spouses allowing the other spouse to handle all of the business and not knowing anything that's going on. And then that spouse becomes incapacitated or passes away, and we don't know. We have no idea of what's going on. Really briefly, a colleague of Lachey and mine, another attorney in Georgia, he got hit by a car coming out of a courthouse and was basically brain dead, was like on a ventilator. And his wife called, wanting to get a guardianship for him. She had no idea about any of the finances. Car got repossessed. What name wasn't on the mortgage, so she couldn't pay it. No one would talk to her. And so, and she was a boss. She had a great job. She was a boss in her professional life, but in her personal life, she just really depended on her husband. He kind of took care of that. And she had no idea about the business of the personal business, how to pay the bills, who to talk to, couldn't get in the bank accounts. And so that is something else that I think is really important. And as you transition, as you get married, as you have kids, in those transitions, you need to still make sure that you are aware and up to date and understand what is going on in your household, that your name is on certain things, that you can talk to certain people, because otherwise, if that spouse dies unexpectedly, if that spouse becomes incapacitated, you have no idea what's going on, and you cannot continue to run the household. It just collapses.
And I'll tell you that in terms of that type of discovery, when you're becoming a new client, that discovery piece becomes so important in terms of, as a financial advisor, how you're really going to work with your clients. Because if you have I'll have one spouse come in and start this whole thing. I said, well, where's the other person? And they're like, well, I said, no, no, no. I have to have them both. I don't do one without the other for that very reason, because I've seen that happen too many times. And then you got to go through this whole process of trying to, again, help them find everything and bring it back. So, I'll let them come for a minute or two. I got to have a spouse. If there is one, they exist. I need to know them. They need to know me. We don't operate any other way because it's just too important. And when you get to these situations like you're talking about, Olivia, it's devastating and it's difficult. I mean, you spend so much time trying to help them get what they need. And quite frankly, I don't even know if you can pay for all that time that it really takes to do that. People would pass out if they knew how much time and money it really takes to do the work that's necessary when one spouse doesn't know what's going on and they're leaving it up to somebody else. And then the other piece is, bringing in the children. Because when you have the family conversation, that family dynamic can come in right there at that meeting. And then people get to see what they think about things. So we do that as well. So I think it's very important. And I know this piece on the financial side is a little bit different from the estate planning side. But again, I think it's really important to try to marry all of that together so that you know what you're doing. And even to the point where, you were talking about long-term care and all of those things, because people say, well, I'll pay for it. You don't really know how much that's going to be. And your estate might be sizable today, but if you start having to pay out of pocket for these things, there won't be any money. So you have to make a decision. Where do you want this money to go? Do you want it to go for your care because you didn't do this? Or do you want it to go to your family as legacy? What do you want to do? So those are conversations that we have with our clients on an ongoing basis. Last thing, reviewing those documents. When you all put those documents together, I need a copy of it and we need to talk about it. When something happens with life, we're going to talk about it and we're going to send you back to the attorney to make some changes. So I love the relationship that we need to have with everybody on this screen. I love it.
And I think my key takeaway from even this entire conversation as a financial therapist is making sure that I'm telling my clients to build their team before.
Gotta have a team.
Because usually by the time I'm talking to them, they are already an emotional wreck.
Yes.
Because so much has already happened. And it is after the fact. It's because they didn't go to the attorney. It's because they didn't see the investment professional. They didn't sit down with nobody. They don't have a team. And so being that we're on with Chip, if you are watching now, make sure that you definitely download the app and start looking at how you're going to build your team, because it's better to do it now ahead of time while you are not highly emotional, while we have the logic and we can actually assess the people in our life before we get super emotional and we start to feel obligated to family and friends and we start to put people in the wrong space that they aren't able to handle that space and they aren't able to do what is needed at the time. Yeah.
Now, I will agree to that. I think the main takeaway that I want to make sure people understand is just take the first step. For some people, it's just having the conversation. Like it's just starting the conversation about what you have, what you need to do. It's making a list. For other people, it's like, okay, what do I have? Let me look at all my accounts. What is that account I opened 20 years ago? Let me go find that statement and just start making a list and looking at what you have. And then who are your people? Let's make those two lists and really start conversing, because one thing is you may have people, you need to make sure that they are willing. And so that is what I always ask my clients. Okay, we've listed these people that we want in these positions. Have you talked to them? Are they willing to serve in that capacity? So just take the first step, I think, is the key here to get going. And I think sometimes there's fear around just taking that initial step.
Right. And to piggyback off of that, understand that you do not have to plan out your entire life from beginning to when you think you will die at this point when you're taking the first step. The way to think about it is I'm just kind of getting things organized in case something happens, regardless of whether that's 20 years from now, 50 years from now, or God forbid, next year. You at least have something in place so that way, if an emergency arises, like with the attorney that was hit by a car, his wife didn't necessarily need to have access to everything, like her name be on all of the accounts and everything. But if he would have had something simple as a power of attorney, she would have been in kind of a list of where things are. Here are the different accounts, whatever. Here's the access with the passwords to these. Here are all the passwords to all of the accounts. These are the things that are paid on a monthly basis. She wouldn't have had to pay the money to go to court to get a guardianship appointed for him because he would have just had that in place already. So just think about it from that perspective. We have rainy day funds. What are your rainy day documents, right? What's going to help you in a rainy day? So you're not dead, you're still here, but you're just not able to function for whatever reason. What did you put in place? In addition, do your people even know where the rainy day fund is to help get you through this particular part? And then couple that with your documents. So don't get overwhelmed with thinking you have to do this first step is I have to plan the rest of my life. And Kathy kind of touched on this, but when I meet with my people, especially because I do deal with a lot of younger people, I already tell them this is not something that is set in stone. We're actually going to meet every 3 to 5 years, depending on how old you are and how old your kids are. Because your child going from 10 to 15 to 15 to 20, they were once a minor, they're no longer a minor, right? They're now in college and they weren't before. That's different than when your child is 35 and 40. Not that big of a difference of what you need to change for your documents. So it's something that grows and evolves with you. And so that's the other thing. So you don't get bogged down with, I need to be able to explain and figure out how I want to do all of this. No, tell me what you want to do for the next 3 to 5 years of your life. What does this look like? Because some people that you are like, oh yes, I definitely want this to be the guardian of my child. 5 years later, when I meet with my people again, they're like, we need to take that person off because some developments have happened. And it's just like, okay, we take them off, I got it. So just know that you don't have to get set in stone. Because that's another where people get overwhelmed with thinking, okay, I'm 25, I'm 35, and I have to do this for what's going to happen to me when I'm 70. No, we're going to keep doing this and updating it. So as we're going to put it out there, as you keep accumulating more wealth, we're adding more stuff, right? So we're always going to meet. That's why you have your team, because we're going to continue to grow with you as you grow and your family and your finances. That's why you have all of us.
Wow. I'm in the background, but all I'm doing is nodding. And obviously you all saw my private chat comments that no one else but this conversation was gold. I know I did say that, at least in the private chat to the side. And we're definitely going to have a part 2 even deeper into this. There were so many things that you all talked about that we didn't even really get to dive super into. And the one thing, I took away a lot of things professionally, personally, even being in this business, right? Because sometimes even us can be our own worst enemies, even though we're in the business and we know, and sometimes we don't always have all of our ducks in a row as we're taking care of others. But I loved what you all brought up or started to bring up about, those kind of uncomfortable conversations, right? Like this isn't the easiest thing to talk about, especially around the holidays, especially with all the things that have just been happening throughout the past year. But it's like it's the critical conversations we need to have, even if we're talking about, hey, I'm not, you put me on this list, but I don't really want to show up for you in that way. And being able to say that, or like, hey, I don't think I'm emotionally ready to do that, right? Like, you love this person, and Lachey, I think you said your best friend has the ability to do that, but maybe a loved one closer, for whatever reason, they can't, right? They physically will be in a position where they won't be able to do that, and just also being honest about that and having those conversations. So we're definitely going to just need to do a part 2 about the how. So I'm really excited about potentially doing that with you all. And obviously, so much that you all poured into this conversation. And I'm sure, everyone that was watching and will continue to watch this episode will get so much out of it. So thank you all so much for being here, for taking part in all of this. I just want to say thank you all for everyone who's watching. This is our last Cultural Coin session for this year in 2024. And when I say we went off with with some gems and some bombs and all the things, I'm from New York. Well, not from New York, but I'm from New Jersey, adjacent to New York. And I was going to say, if Funk Flex was in here to drop a bomb on, at the end of this episode or throughout, I think that would have happened. So that also shows my age for those who don't know who Funk Flex is or are not familiar with New Jersey DJs or New York DJs. It's okay. Go Google, Chat GPT, all of that's available. But you can tell the era that I grew up in. But again, super, super happy to have you all here. And stay tuned. We have a lot coming up for 2025. This group obviously will definitely be back. Make sure you go to chipprofessionals.com to start to establish your team and to meet more incredible experts that we have. So have a happy new year and all the things that everyone celebrates throughout this time.
Well, it was a pleasure meeting all of you guys and doing this panel with you guys today. I hope everyone has a happy holidays.
Absolutely.
Happy holidays.
Same. It was my pleasure.
Awesome. And we're going to close out for everyone. Enjoy and take care.
All right.